FaceTime Fighters. We're back with myself, Aaron the Marshman Morgan. Got a good friend on today. Obviously, I know you very well, but for the people that don't know you, introduce yourself, your name, your fighter status, and where you're from.
I'm Lightning Lloyd Ellett, and I'm from Brighton in England. And I had 23 fights as a pro. I won 20, and I had 70 as an amateur, box for England, and yeah, I'm happily retired.
That background doesn't look like Brighton. I know Brighton's sunny at the moment, but I don't look like Brighton. Whereabouts
I've
are you
locked
now?
myself in a room, but you can see it just.
So you've
Well, there
relocated.
is the sea in Brighton, so.
So you've relocated to Spain.
Yeah, I live in Mallorca now. I'd been retired for about 6 months and then moved here, and then 7 years I've been here.
Oh wow. Right, Lloyd, we're gonna get into it. First things first, I want to know what's the biggest lesson you learned from boxing?
Um, I would say it's probably a little bit of a kind of cliche, but like you only get out what you put in. Like it happens. I remember my coach said it to me at the beginning, and it stuck with me. Like, so that's why I trained so hard throughout, because I wanted to win. I wanted to do well. So I think I think that's massive. Like, it's very simple and basic, but it's so true.
That's the thing as well. It's so true, and that's something that transfers over into every aspect of your life. That you only get out really what you put into it. You put the work in, you reap the rewards. So 100%, I agree with that one.
Yeah, massively.
Lloyd, cool. Give me one person that you would fight for free, no money involved, just for pride. It could be a fighter, it could be a historical fighter that you'd love to share the ring with. It could be someone that you was maybe on a collision course in your pro career, but you didn't actually get to fight. Or it could be someone that you just don't like. You'd love to get them in the ring and put your hands on them.
Can it be a manager or promoter?
It can be whoever you like, my friend.
No, what? It's tough. Do you know what? I wouldn't. It's tough. Someone like, I'd love to get in the ring and like get in the ring with someone like Canelo and just like feel their power, feel their strength. Maybe and maybe not. I wouldn't want to take a shot from him. Don't get me wrong, but like feel the strength and like just see how slick he is. Like Canelo or Mayweather, like those slick moves. I say Canelo because I think Mayweather would just be too frustrating. It'd be like you wouldn't be able to lay a glove on him, and it would be.
So what you're saying is you think you could land some shots on Canelo, yeah?
I would open Canelo. But I feel like Canelo would sit inside with you, and you could feel all them little inside moves.
Yeah.
Maybe if he was at like 50%, going easy on me.
Yeah, for real. I see. Speaking of being inside and feeling their moves, I remember you posted that video from back in the day when you was in the ring with one of the absolute goats who would 100% be on the Mount Rushmore of boxing, Roberto Duran. I saw you had a clip with Roberto Duran. You were in the ring. He was showing you little moves, little nudges, inside fighting. I mean, stuff like that's mind blowing to be in a ring with someone of that stature in the boxing world. And what was it like being in the ring with Duran?
That was unreal. Yeah, that was unbelievable. That was a couple of weeks before my pro debut as well. And
wow.
He was one cool customer. He was just like a bag of tricks, and he bag of tricks, but also he was obviously, I mean, his hands of stone. He was obviously one tough motherfucker as well. Yeah. So he had it all.
He's one of the best.
Definitely. And what he was doing in the ring, he was just showing us like all like slick stuff, proper tricky, like turning someone on the ropes, different defensive moves, all about defense really. And it was unreal.
Lloyd, cool. What's a moment? I know that you're retired now, but what's a moment that either made you nearly walk away from the sport, or what actually made you walk away from the sport in the end?
Fights being cancelled would be the thing that makes you question, like, is it worth it? You know,
Yeah.
when you've trained. I remember I trained for like basically I trained for 6 months. I relocated in London, new gym. I was at the Peacock.
Yeah.
I trained really hard, and I was ready. You know, I felt great. It was just gonna have a warm up and then get back in to like hopefully a big fight, waiting on a date, that kind of thing. You know,
Yeah, always
thing that
wait,
you
always
say
wait,
constantly when you're boxing.
always wait. I'm just waiting on the date. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, but yeah, and then the day of the weigh-in, my fight was cancelled. That was like that felt like a blow, you know,
Yeah,
and
that's a kick in the balls.
yeah, and I'd had loads of fights. I'd had fights cancelled in the past before that, but that was probably the beginning of the end for me, because then it then happened again twice that year. One like a couple of weeks out, another a week out, and yeah, and then I so that was the closest I came then, and then I had that was in like the May or something of the year, and happened a few more times. We had the summer, and then I think in November or October, I got a week's notice to fight for the WBO European title against Stephen Danyo, and so I took the fight.
Very good fighter as well. Very good fighter.
Yes, yeah, slippery, very slippery, awkward, and a few other guys had turned down the fight. And
yeah, I mean that's not the kind of fight you really want on a week's notice. So for you to take that,
no,
deserve
it was awkward.
massive credit for that.
Yeah, I'd actually sparred him early in my career, like when I'd had about 2 fights or something. But yeah, and went in and lost on points, and then afterwards I was like, do you know what? This is there's easier ways of making money, and it's now just about money really. And I'm 30. I think it's time.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Right, Lloyd. We hear all the sound bites during the build up to the fights, and we know what people normally say. But what's the biggest lie that fighters tell during fight week?
That they feel great, that they feel good, because no one. I mean, it's quite rare on fight week to actually feel good. You know, you're making weight.
Yeah,
you've got this pressure. You might be selling tickets, or even at the top level, they're dealing with making weight, and they're dealing with doing press conferences and stuff like that. They don't need that, especially if they're making weight and they've had a hard camp and they're doing, you know, they got to travel to these press conferences. You got to do all this shit like you don't really want to be doing. When Conor Ben was out here doing his camp, so I was, and I was at the same gym where I trained, so I was chatting to him and Tony Sims quite a bit. And I remember Tony saying like, "Oh, next week we got to do a load of the press stuff, like not ideal kind of thing." And yeah, you don't want to be doing that. So I would definitely say it's that they've had a great camp and they feel great, because if something's gone wrong in camp, you don't want to talk it into existence beforehand. Yeah. Like I remember I lost the first fight I lost as a pro. I fought Southpaw and I lost, and I was winning, and I got caught with a big shot, got stopped, and my manager was afterwards like, "You said you felt great. You said you felt amazing. Like, it's like, what happened?" And I was like, you know, I didn't spar any Southpaws. We didn't spar one Southpaw in the build up. And I said I didn't feel, and it didn't happen. And he was like, "But you said it went great. You said the camp was brilliant." And I was like,
you're thinking, what was you expecting me to say?
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything otherwise, you know.
Yeah, of course. Lloyd, we touched on this slightly, but you might have a different answer. have you ever taken a fight that you wasn't ready for? If so, then why did you take it? And what actually happened in that fight? So I know we spoke about the Daniel fight, but it might be a different. You might have a different answer for that one.
Um, I wouldn't say I wasn't ready for Daniel, to be honest. Although it was only a week's notice, I still made 147 fairly well.
Yeah.
Like okay. Uh, and I'd been training, so I was as ready as I was gonna get. I guess mentally and maybe not fully, but I don't think there was. Yeah, I don't think there's any fight that I wasn't. There was never a fight where I hadn't trained. I
Yeah,
don't think there was
yeah.
ever. Yeah, I
That's
don't think
one
I
thing. That's one thing. Obviously, I know you quite well, and you were always in shape. You trained year
yeah,
round. You stayed relatively close to your fighting weight, so you were prepared. If the phone rang, you were prepared to jump in and get stuck in. So
yeah.
that's something.
I think I was always. I wasn't like. I wouldn't say I was naturally talented or anything. So I needed to be in shape, and I think, yeah, I was always in shape. But maybe, I mean, most of the time I'd be close to the weight, but perhaps like everyone, because we're boiling down to weights that we actually shouldn't be. Because
Yeah,
like I'm nowhere near welterweight now. I'm sure
yeah.
you're nowhere near light middleweight.
if I,
Like
if I
it's
cut if I cut off one of my legs, I might be close to 154. But other than that,
yeah, exactly. But like you're still like a healthy. Do you know what I mean? Like so,
yeah,
yeah, it's just different. Fight weights are different. So I could only say a few occasions where I've maybe not done the weight great, but aside from that, I'd never not prepared.
yeah. Lloyd, you've got a wealth of experience, a lot of pro fights, a ton of amateur fights. You've been in gyms around the world. I know. I was with you in Las
You're there,
Vegas
yeah.
in the Mayweather gym. Um, what's the hardest you've ever been hit? There must be one time that stands out in your head. The hardest you've ever been hit. Amateur, pro, sparring, one time.
Uh That's a good question. I spot yeah. I reckon I actually because it's not even about who it was or like how hard they actually punch. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean? If you don't see a shot coming,
yeah,
that that's gonna shake you. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like I've been hit by Eubank. Ted Cheeseman was a big puncher. Like I, Darryl Williams was a big puncher. I
mhm.
don't think there was anyone in Vegas when we were there that was at the Mayweather show. I don't think there was anyone in particular who hit
I
that hard.
remember. I remember I sparred with one southpaw out there. He's quite tall. He's like 6'1". I remember he hit me with a left hand, and he could crack. But other than that, there was no one out there.
Yeah,
From what I remember, it was more
there,
there was a lot of fitness and stuff like that.
yeah. But the most I've been hurt with a shot, I'll never ever forget it. I was sparring in the gym. And there was a kid who he was probably about 19, 20, and I was about 22 or something. No, actually, no, we was younger than that. But anyway, a little bit younger, and he did weights all the time. He was
Yeah,
like Vitaly Klitschko, but like a 75-kilo version.
yeah,
And he'd had about 8 fights or something. And I remember I slipped his jab and countered him. And then I did it and I was way ahead of him ability wise
yeah,
and experience. And then I did it again. And then I did it again. I did it like 5 times in a row. And then I was obviously confident. And I did it again. And after he'd thrown the jab, he followed up with the right hand. And I remember a hot shooting pain going up my calf and and seeing TV screens and like just like it was must have been split second, but I did like a little dip and then I just clicked back in and
yeah,
I was like filled with rage. I was like at myself, like I was so because I knew what had happened, but
yeah,
and then and everyone was like, "You're right, you're right, you're right." I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine, I'm fine."
yeah. Of course, of course.
But yeah, that I would say that's the hardest I've been hit because I probably jumped into that.
Yeah, man, run into it full steam.
Yeah.
Lloyd, what's one corner instruction that you'll never ever forget? It can be good, It could be bad, but there must be one time in the corner that sticks in your mind. You'll never forget it.
George, straight into my head because I didn't know he was going to ask that. I've actually got two. One, my first amateur fight. First amateur fight. Come back after the first round. My old coach Dave Brown. He said to me, "Just throw a jab and a right hook. It's going to land every time." And I threw it once, boom, landed. Threw it again, but I did not stop throwing it. All I did, every one of them landed.
Yeah.
And after that fight, I was like, everything he says, I'm going to listen to. Like, if I listen to him, I'm going to win. And the other one was in my first 10 rounder. I went back after like fifth or sixth round, and I asked Al Smith what round it was, and he told me. I think he told me like it's a sixth round. And then I come back again. I come back for the next round, and he said, No, now it's the sixth round. And I was like, fuck's sake. The fight's just got longer.
Speaking on coaches, in your opinion, what separates a good coach from a bad coach?
I reckon I had like six coaches as a pro. And I think, and all of them were quite very different. But I think someone I think you have, obviously they've got to have knowledge, but they've got to be open to communication as well. It's not my way or the highway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just don't work. Like, you got to listen to how you might have written down a plan, like we spar on Thursdays, but if your body's broken by Thursday one week, you can't plan for how someone's going to feel, and it might not be the right thing for them.
I agree.
So I think, having their best interests, having the fighter's best interests at heart is huge and can be quite rare sometimes. Having that and having like you're working together. It's not a dictatorship. You're actually a team, and one person's not just above and dictating everything. You've got to listen, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Like I said before, you've got a wealth of experience and you've been around the game a long time. What is a mistake that you see fighters making outside of the ring?
I would say I wouldn't say it's like I was like an easy one to go for would be like, getting caught up in a different the type of lifestyle that they shouldn't. But to be honest, fighters don't do that. If you're a fighter, then you just don't, like, you get found out for that quite early on. So, I wouldn't say that. I would probably say probably listening to the wrong people sometimes. Listening to the wrong people. Not doing because it's probably a mistake I made was not following exactly what I felt was best for me. And listening to other people, not just following my gut, my instinct, because you're new in the game. You don't actually know. You don't know a lot, so you're trusting other people who are more ahead of the game and more experienced. I think actually listening to your own body, listening to your own mind on some things. If someone doesn't feel right to sign with, or if someone doesn't feel right for,
it's a big one.
If a fight don't feel right, I think listening to your only yourself. When you hear like someone like you hear people slate like someone like for pulling out of a fight last minute, or for getting out of a deal, like a promotional deal or something. They've done that for a reason.
100%.
Every fighter wants to fight at the end of the day. No fighter doesn't want to fight. They want to fight. They want to get paid. They want to move ahead. So reasons, and they've probably just followed their instincts.
100%. I agree with you, man. 100%. You've got to be able to, and it is very difficult, especially when you're early in the game and you're talking and you're listening to people that are much further along or much more experienced. But at the end of the day, nobody knows you the way you know you. And if
Yeah,
sometimes you have to take ownership and you have to say, that's if somebody tells me we're going to run 10 miles a day, 5 days a week, and I know that's not good for me because I've got a dodgy knee and I've got a dodgy ankle, you have to be able to have
yeah,
enough confidence to say, that's not going to be good for me. Maybe I'll do one 10-mile run a week and then the rest of the days I'll do XYZ instead. So
yeah.
I fully agree. Fully agree.
Yeah, you know that it's not right. If you know that someone, probably there's definitely occasions where maybe I weren't in full camp or whatever, and then I've got to the gym and I've been told I'm going to spar or something. Someone who's red hot, and it happened with Josh Taylor. He was like ready to fight,
Yeah.
and I'd been kind of used as sparring for him, and
Yeah.
like I had a decent spar. It was competitive,
Yeah.
but it felt like life and death at some
Yeah.
stages.
And that's the thing. Even in them spars, you're shipping shots, you're eating shots that you probably wouldn't be eating if you were that
Yeah,
little bit sharper. And a lot of the young fighters I speak to, they don't understand. When you're, I'm fully against wars in sparring on a whole. You know, there's time and place for it. You definitely need hard sparring, and you need to be able to go through that to know that when the time comes, yeah, I can do it. I've done it already. But they should be few and far between because the young fighters need to realize every single punch they take is another punch that's adding on to that ticker. And there's only so many punches you can take throughout your career before it starts to have an effect on you. And the effect might not be instant. It might turn up later in life. But all these gym wars and being used as sparring partners, I spoke to young fighters that have told me things like, "Oh, I'm not going to name drop fighters, but I'm going down to his camp next week. I'm doing 8 rounds with him." And I'm looking thinking, mate, you don't want to be doing 8 rounds with him because he punches like an absolute truck, and you're nowhere near that level. You're a talented fighter, but I know you're not near that level. They're just using you as a body. So
yeah. Everything's got to be for you, really, and obviously test yourself, work with people who are ahead of the game, but you got to be ready. And you go when you do step up, you do it, you get a taste, you see where you're at, then you regroup. A few
yeah,
months, you go again. But it can happen with like sparring, with just things you agree to,
yeah,
in terms of fights, anything. Because
yeah, yeah,
that's why do you know what I was saying the other day to someone, that if you've got if you because it's rare that a coach will just purely have your best interests at heart.
mm,
So it's like, and it's such a hard game that you need that.
yeah,
And if so, I think if your coach is like a blood relative, I feel like it's almost like a requirement,
yeah,
because no
yeah.
one cares that much as than
Yeah,
someone
I get
who,
you. I get you.
like,
I
they're not
mean,
going to take your money. Like the father son relate, they get a lot of stick, like the father son relationships
yeah,
in coaches and stuff. But I would have loved to have my dad as a coach, because he wouldn't be trying to get me killed at times.
yeah. No, I agree. I think like I was piggybacking off what you're saying. I think the father-son relationships in boxing they do get a lot of stick, but and I think it's a difficult line to walk as a father. And am I talking to you as a father or now I'm talking to you as a coach? But in terms of having your best interest at heart, nobody's going to have your interest at heart like that. This sort of
Yeah.
piggybacks onto the final question before we wrap it up. I know you're a father now. Would you want your kids to box? If yes, then why? If no, then why not?
Um, I would. I think. I mean, 100% learn. You got to learn to throw punches and stuff, but that's like mandatory. But I yeah, I do. Like, I would like them to have. Ideal scenario is like have a few amateur fights,
Mm-hmm.
maybe have like 10 amateur fights, be really good, slick, and then and have the opportunity to go further, and then say, "No, I'm gonna pursue this career or this business because it makes more money and more sense." That stuff's too hard. That's a mug's game, and then walk away. That's ideal scenario, because preparing for a fight, there's, as you know, there is nothing harder. You know, you're not gonna there's a lot of growth in there as a person, like, and everything's easy after that. You know, just sitting in a changing room, being like, hearing someone smash the pads, like the pads are like gunshots going off, and you're like, fuck, that's the guy I'm fighting. That's the guy I'm fighting. like this, that you can't replicate that feeling. So, so I would like them to go through that, come out of it clean, 10 fights, 10 wins, retire, move on to a better life.
Listen, Lloyd, I've really enjoyed having you on. It's been really good to catch up. It's such a shame that when I'm on holiday, you're actually back in the UK, because I would love to meet up and have a beer. But definitely stay in touch. I really appreciate you having on. I thought you give some great answers, give us some great insight. Brilliant interview. Appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Nice one, mate. And
take care, my man.
Yeah, I'll next time you're in Mallorca.
Definitely.